Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Alexia, and in this video I'd like to talk about home yoga studios and how you can set up your yoga room at home. Now, it's true that practicing in a yoga studio can be a really rewarding and blissful experience. Over time, our yoga studios tend to become our home away from home, the place where we get to escape from our daily lives. And yet, practicing yoga at home can actually be a very rewarding experience, especially if you practice in a well thought out space. Now, when we practice alone at home, we get to focus on our breath, our body, and how we're feeling that day. And in the end, that's what it's really all about. Now, your yoga space can be anywhere in your home. It can be in your living room, in your bedroom, in your office, in your spare room, anywhere where you think that you can have just a little space to do your practice. This video is split into 3 parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about the different equipment that you might need in order to set up this home yoga space. In the second part, I'm going to offer you practical tips in order to actually set up your space. And in the third part, which for me is the most important of all, is once you've set everything up, is finding the motivation to practicing alone in this wonderful and beautiful yoga space. So, part 1, the equipment that you might need for your yoga space. Okay, I'm going to sit down now for this part of the video. Right, so these are some of the things that you could use if you want to set up a home yoga studio. Now, to be totally honest, the only thing you really need to practice yoga at home or anywhere is a yoga mat. All you really need is a yoga mat. Now, this is one of my new Lululemon yoga mats that I'm trying out. Even if you don't want to invest in anything else, at least try to invest in a good quality yoga mat. So for example, if you practice something dynamic like Ashtanga or Vinyasa, you want a good quality yoga mat so that you have a good grip and also so it can last just that much longer. If on the other hand you practice something softer or more grounding, like for example yin yoga or restorative yoga, you want a mat with a good cushioning because this will be more gentle on your joints. So now I'm going to talk about some of the things that you might want for your home yoga studio. Now, the first thing is a yoga bolster. Now, yoga bolsters can be used by all levels of practitioners, and it's a really nice way to do some gentle chest openers. Well, you lay it behind you, you sit down, and then you lie back. And this is a wonderful chest opener. And another thing is you can do some really nice restorative inversions by sitting on your bolster, lying back, and this is a wonderful version of an inversion. Now, moving on, beyond your yoga bolsters, which again can be used, are mainly used actually in yin yoga and restorative yoga. Another nice thing you can have are yoga blocks. Now, yoga blocks are great because they can be used by all levels of practitioners. So yoga blocks can be used by beginners. Like, for example, if it's quite difficult to access certain poses, yoga blocks can make some poses just that much easier, that much more accessible. Another thing is that they can be used by advanced practitioners. Like for example, if you want to open up into certain poses, yoga blocks are a really nice way of doing that. So if I lay my mat blocks here, they're a really nice way to do nice chest openers. And yeah, there's so many other things you can do with your yoga blocks. And I might be filming another video on that later. So let's see. Another thing you can have is a yoga wheel. Now, yoga wheels are great, especially if you're working on deepening your back bend. This is my yoga wheel. I've had it for a few years now. And one of my favorite things to do with it is you sit down, hold on to it, and then work your way into a really nice back bend. And that's just one of the things that you can do with a yoga wheel. And yeah, also I'm planning on filming a video with a few more options for that. And last but not least, a nice little addition is an eye pillow. Now, eye pillows are great for when you lie down in Shavasana, especially if you practice and there's daylight, or if you just want if you want a little bit of help, just finding a bit more relaxation at the end of your practice. So if you're interested in any of these, find in the description box below links to certain similar products to this. Part 2. Now we're going to talk about the tips in order to help actually set up your space. Now the first thing that you want is enough space. Now if you have a spare room that you can set up for your yoga practice, perfect, that's great. If on the other hand you don't have a spare room, you can practice in your living room or in your bedroom. You might have to move the sofa away, move some furniture away, or roll up the carpet, just as long as you have enough space to roll out your mat and enough space for you to stretch out on. The second thing is to unclutter. Now, you might have noticed that when you go to a yoga studio, it tends to be a nice, clean environment. So there's not many things around, not too many objects. If possible, try to bring that also into your home yoga space. So for example, if you have a spare room for your yoga studio, then try to only have things that you need for your yoga practice. If on the other hand you're practicing your living room, in your bedroom or your office, if possible, try to keep it as uncluttered as possible, or at least tidy up just before you practice, because having clutter around you can be quite distracting, and that's the last thing that we want before or during our yoga practice. The third thing is distractions. Now, nowadays our main distraction tends to be our mobile phone. So when you go to a studio, you might even leave your phone in your car, you might leave it in the locker. You tend to not put your phone next to you on the mat. Sometimes when we practice at home, we tend to have our phone just next to us. So if possible and when possible, try to take your phone into another room on silent if possible. Number 4, focal point. You may have noticed that in a yoga studio, the students' mats tend to be facing a part of the room. And on this part of the room, there tends to be a focal point. Now, this focal point can be a little statue, it can be a set of pictures, it could be an artwork, it can be some flowers, it could be anything. So a nice idea would be to recreate that or bring that into your home yoga space. Again, if you have a dedicated room for your home yoga studio, perfect, you can set that up with whatever object or objects that you like. If on the other hand you are practicing in your living room or your bedroom, then you could have a dedicated object and bring that and lay that in front of your yoga mat. And that might actually help you stay focused in your yoga practice. Another thing is lighting a candle. Now, I had a yoga teacher who, when the class started, she would light this candle, and when the class ended, she would then blow it out. So this symbolism helped to set the tone of the class. So we knew that when the candle was lit, that was our time for practice. And so that's one thing that you could also bring to your home yoga space. You could have a candle that when you start your practice, you light the candle, and when it's time for you to finish your practice, you blow the candle out. And the last thing is go on to Pinterest. So if you're looking for any inspiration for setting up your home yoga space, go on to Pinterest. You will find so many ideas of how to set up your place, the colors if you want to have any plants, the artwork that you might want to include, how you want to lay out your yoga mat. So my advice would be, if you have just that extra time, go onto Pinterest, look through any ideas you can find, and when you find something that you like, see how you can incorporate that into your home yoga space. Part 3, finding the motivation to practice alone. Now, I used to go to my favorite yoga studio, but then I moved away. I moved somewhere where there were no other teachers around me, so I had to find the motivation to practice alone. And believe me when I tell you, it can be quite challenging at times. However, there are ways that you can motivate yourself to do your practice. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my 2 top ways I would advise anyone who's struggling with finding the motivation to practice. So the first thing is to create a routine and be consistent. If you create a routine and if you try to stay consistent, your yoga practice will be that much easier, and it will be that much easier to step on your mat day by day, day after day. By creating a routine, it helps you to stay consistent. So you have a particular day, a particular time of the day that you do your practice. Now, something that I found helps a lot is if every day you practice even just a little bit, promise yourself that every day you're going to practice, even if it's just 5 minutes, because it's much better if you practice every day a little bit rather than once in a while a full 1 hour, 2 hour practice. You'll notice that if you are consistent, your body will understand the practice a lot better, and it will be much easier to focus, and also it'll be much easier to find the motivation to actually step onto your mat. And the second thing is to be kind to yourself. So if possible, when you're practicing, especially if you're practicing alone at home, be proud of yourself. It's a great achievement to be able to practice alone at home. Now, when we practice, we tend to have an internal dialogue going on, and this internal dialogue unfortunately tends to be quite negative. And so my advice to anyone, either when you're on the mat or when you're thinking about practicing or when you realize that you haven't practiced as much as you would have liked to, try to be kind to yourself and be proud of yourself for at least trying. And so when you step onto your mat, when you're doing your yoga practice alone at home, be proud of yourself, because it's a great achievement, even just the fact that you stepped onto your mat that day. So, thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you want, find me on Instagram. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.